Miguel Dorati here at the MMA Museum, and we're in for a treat. We've got another one of our deep dive interviews, career interviews, and this time we're doing a 2-for-1. Two outstanding careers, long careers. One on the ladies' side, one on the men's side, and they're a married couple, which is unusual. We've had one of these before, but I'm very proud today to introduce Eddy and Lisa Ellis out of the Great Northwest. How are you folks doing?
We're doing good.
Cool.
Just got done teaching class.
All right, good. So you guys are still in the game then, huh?
I'm sorry, one more time.
You're still in the game? You're still in the fight game?
Oh yeah, this is our gym outside.
Awesome.
So yeah, we're just finishing up
Cool.
our gym. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Good. Now, it's been a long time here. I know I was looking over your careers, and I mentioned off the record, but on the record, Eddy started first. He's still a young man. I think you're just about 40 right now, which means you started when you were about 17 years old, according to the record here. Is that correct?
16 was my first fight.
16. Okay, so take us further back than that. You know, were you the kind of guy that beat up people on the street, or were you a wrestler in school, or were you a good kid, a bad kid? What was your story getting you to that first fight?
Okay, well, I was definitely a wrestler. That had a lot to do with it.
Okay, cool.
And I was an ornery kid.
Okay.
Well, I had a good upbringing, but it all kind of fell apart, and it caused me to have a little bit of anger issues growing up. So I took a lot of that fighting out on people.
Okay, all right, and you always had that reputation, you know, especially when you fight from that young. You know, you get a guy by the time you're 20, you had 20 fights under your belt, you know, so you had a lot of experience, and you always seemed very calm and cool in the ring. Like, hey, I'm home. You know, this is not something to worry about. So tell us about your wrestling career a little bit, and tell us about a street fight you might have had back in the day.
Typically, I got into wrestling because that experience when you actually rough somebody up and everyone congratulates you for it, and that really got me that spellbound on what more we could do. And wrestling was just that next step of, well, you can't do that, And I found fighting, it was like that open game where I found that home. I was made for that action and that ring.
Gotcha. So when you're 16, getting into that ring for the first time, you were still in high school.
Yeah, I was actually right post wrestling season.
Okay, so what's the deal? Did you have a black eye? Did you go back? You had to go to school Monday. You fight Saturday, and you're back in school on Monday. Explain that to the normal people who don't know what that feels like.
In my town, in my school, fighting was more of a thing that we all did. So the fight program was actually like a fundraiser for the wrestling program. So I wrestled and then fought on the show that was going to help fund the wrestling program the next year. So it was widely known that what we were doing in the town. So people knew that we were getting into this fighting stuff, but still didn't know what it was yet.
Okay, that's what's cool about the Northwest. That the Northwest is pretty, like, there was like a robust, like, grassroots underground kind of love for the sport up there from the very beginning.
Yeah, so, people didn't know about it.
So that's what this it was called PPKA Wenatchee Rumble.
Yeah, the Pacific Pancration Kickboxing Association.
Pacific Pancration Kickboxing Association. Okay, so with the Pancration name, did you already know who Matt Hume was and have influences from that guy?
He was the first promoter of that show. So one of his students was on the wrestling team, and then called him up Matt to throw the show down in Yale. So I fought on that first show. It was Matt's show.
Okay, awesome. Now, Lisa, you're around the same age, you know, as a lady. We won't get into the details there, but where were you right around there? Were you watching this? Were you into it already, or before?
No,
No.
I was at a different school, so I was up north, and I was heavy into wrestling and then freestyle and Greco-Roman.
Okay,
so that was my side gig.
Okay, you were competing at school then, also.
Mm-hmm. Oh okay. Yeah, school and then Western regionals, and then I even competed on the Washington State team down in Las Vegas at the Women's Open a few times. So Yeah, I was more on the wrestling side. I didn't know about fighting really.
Okay, now if I had a bet, I bet Eddie's kicked somebody's ass in a bar. Now, have you ever kicked somebody's ass in a bar?
Never.
Never. Ed, do you defer on that? Is she fibbing?
Girls are rude. A lot of girls are really rude, and I'm like, I'm super nice until you piss me off, and then it's like wrong girl. And then girls are like, then they're drunk and dumb, and then I don't know. Girls have charged me. I've stepped out of the way. They ran into barbecues. I don't know. Girls are dumb sometimes.
Well,
Yeah.
I remember that about you, that very no nonsense, like very no nonsense. And you're also, you know, even in women's MMA where you got weight classes, you're also on the smaller side, even, you know, for the active game. So bet a couple of drunk girls thought, hey, I'm gonna smash this little girl.
Oh yeah, they do little, and I'm like, and then I'm like, my little inner bulldog comes out, and I just don't. Again, it's certain ways, and it's certain things, or fighting words, or mannerisms, and it's like, why are you talking to me like that? Do you want to how do you want to deal with this, really? So they
Cool.
choose.
Okay, cool. So you guys are kind of made for each other. How'd you guys meet?
Trouble.
I would say so.
Talk about how you guys met. Did you meet at a fight, or did you guys meet elsewhere? What's the story there? Because
yeah, I was hanging out with one of my girlfriends, Janelle. Just kind of had already gotten my feet wet in the scene a little bit up north with Charlie's Combat Club, and then I just kind of was.
We had a girl on our team.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just was kind of rifting with my parents a little bit. My dad was trying to put a curfew on me a year after college, and I just didn't really care for that, and so I said, I'm out of here. So I moved down on my friend's couch, and then just started learning the sport, and then we met on the same team, and just kind of flirted for a while, and that was that.
okay, that's cool. That's cool.
Together.
And the cool thing is you're still together, because you know a lot of that early going, and you know a lot of people in the fight game. You know, it's a few people that stay loyal to each other, so it's actually kind of a cool story as well. Just, you know, for the record. Now you mentioned Charlie's Combat Club. Is that Pearson?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Okay, so Charlie once held a hook and shoot belt, so I know Charlie pretty well, and he's good people too. He's a good trainer. Now, is that where you guys start to pick up technique and stuff? Because both of you definitely took your game kind of beyond wrestling and the stuff that you learned in school, became mixed martial artists. So talk about how that started, and you know, if you took to it right away.
Yeah, mainly cross training with lots of different folks is where we got a lot of our experience.
Cross training a lot.
Yeah.
Because
Is
not
that
a lot of people did it.
Yeah, is that what you guys did? Kind of nomads, like, you know?
Our team was a traveling team. Our team would go to place and set up training camps, and then that's what it was. We went place to place and found training opportunities. I was fortunate enough to be with the guys that all went to Matt Hughes growing up. That's why I got so much exposure around such high level people. So I was just a road dog for a bunch of adults that wanted to paddle on the way home.
Yeah.
So yeah, I drove up with lots of those guys a lot. Jeff Munson, Dennis Hallman, Ivan Salaberry, Aaron Riley. I'd be in the back seat, just packed in there with just a bunch of rowdy, high level guys.
See, now, but why? How come? Or maybe I'm wrong, but how come you never kind of stuck with the Hume team or those guys? Were you kind of happy doing your own thing? Were you, or were you actually part of that team for a little while and you just kind of, I missed it?
No, I don't think I was ever. I was just, like I said, I was so young in that part of the game. I was just a follow along, and they were all just traveling there and out and doing their own thing. As Ivan and all those guys kind of disbanded and started their own stuff, they just kind of that network fell through. So I didn't have a close connection with them other than just being the ride along kid back then.
See, all right, I'm going to ask you your opinion here, because I know all those guys pretty well. Ivan and I, we're both from the same country in South America. We're both from Chile. He's a good friend of mine. Hallman, I consider Hallman one of the best. Who was the best guy you rolled with up there? Give us some see. Who taught you the most?
Hallman for sure for grappling technique. Most of the guys would defer to him for his grappling back then. Was part of original game and then part of the new game. He wrote part of that though.
Yeah,
But then
Holman
we
was
had
a Holman was a wizard kind of guy, you know. He caught Matt Hughes twice, just for people who may want a reference point. And he was a guy who was excellent with no gi. I always heard, and maybe you could confirm for me, that he was murder the first couple of minutes. Like he would catch you quickly, and then maybe when you got used to him, maybe you could hold on to him for a little bit. But he was really tricky. Is that an accurate description?
I think on the side of that was that part of his fall on the intensity of the game when it started to become equal. Couldn't last as long at that style and that pace, that murderous pace in the very couple minutes was true. But then it would vanish.
Okay. And Holman, a guy with 50+ fights at every level of the game and stuff. So definitely a good teacher. Would you would qualify him as your best teacher? What about Munson?
Oh, Munson was he was just a different character, honestly, more of a philosopher on the side, and just interesting to talk to and hear from.
Interesting to talk to. Now the stories about Munson, I think interesting is an understatement. Now, do you have any Munson stories you want to share with us? I've heard he liked to get naked. Have you got a naked Munson story?
It was like that exactly. Well, my friend and one of my friends and him they were like putting nasty stuff on each other's cars, and he put a big bottle of urine in the backseat of his car that we just set just right so we'd tip over while we were leaving. And I mean, absolutely him. We had a call out on it, and then we drug a bunch of garbage cans up on his porch that night. And get something to get back, but he was always just for us. He was huge and crazy. I mean,
yeah. No, I know. He moved to Russia too, so that philosophy thing. He backed it up. At least he was really living it.
Yeah.
Now, Lisa, you guys didn't do anything crazy like put piss on people's cars, did you? No, okay. Yeah, well, good. You can always count on ladies to be a little more classy. All right. Lisa, so what do you remember about your first fight? You came along a little bit later. I'm looking at this, and I believe now I'm going to say probably Sherdog is not doing either of you justice, and you probably have more fights than Sherdog has for you. But Lisa, you come up as having debuted actually in my my home show, Indiana's Hook and Shoot, in November of 2004. Was that really your official first fight, or what was your first fight?
I fought in the Yakima Sun Dome for my first fight, and it was crazy quick. And the girl tapped. I'd just barely taken her back, and her corner woman was like I was gonna hurt her or something, and it was like, what? No. Can we do it again? And then they said no.
Yeah.
And that was that. And then I had a loss. I took a pretty good loss down in FCFF, and then I got a win in FCFF, win down there. And then I think I did Hook and Shoot. No, and I had another fight up north on Charlie's shows. I think I had 4 or 5 fights before that Hook and Shoot bout.
Okay. And that's what we're talking about. The Northwest was a pretty robust scene of fighting going on there. And I think you also point out something about the ladies from way back in those times where you could run into some mismatches where, you had girls that like yourself who already had some technique and some training and wanted to compete. And you could run into some girls that just really weren't ready to, kind of were enamored with that. So, but talk about the loss you took. Who'd you lose to?
What is it? Shoni. I was going to say Carter, but it's obviously not Shoni Carter. Shoni, I forget her name.
Okay.
She lived in Oregon for a long time, and then I was just turning my triangles. I was going triangle transition to armbar, and I was just turning the wrong way, and she just punched my face, and I was pretty swollen. It was, and but I knew what I was doing wrong, and I just got back to training, and I loved it because I loved wrestling. I wrestled in college one year. I just loved that contact. I don't know, that aggressiveness. That it's therapy in lots of ways.
No, that's cool. That's cool. You kind of gotta love it, especially to stick with it from way back then because I bet you weren't making a lot of money.
There wasn't even an idea. you're talking about that before. We were fighting. We wanted to fight. There wasn't a big card. There wasn't a big show day back then. We just do it because we love it.
It wasn't your Instagram, your Facebook, and none of your. Well, I guess that's old school too.
No
But like
videos.
no TikTok. Like it wasn't about that. It was about going out and fighting and just giving it your all and having a team, having the camaraderie and cheering each other on. That's wrestling. We built our gym because we loved wrestling. We loved our team. So we've had a gym for 17 years now.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome.
So yeah, we feel pretty comfortable where we're at, and it's allowed us to have an opportunity to raise our kids. We get to be with our kids all day, every day. We did just got done with the 5-year hiatus with Eddy for schooling. So he was in school like 9 to 3 almost every day for about 5 years straight. So that was pretty tough, but in between that, we had 2 kids, and just now we have 3 kids total. And just, I don't know, we were really blessed and so lucky. It's not all about the money. It's about the lives and the people you affect. And it's been a blessing, I'd say.
Cool. Good. And that's good to hear, but I am going to take you further back, and we're not going to jump ahead like this. So at this point, like I mentioned, Lisa, you're probably legitimately, if I'm not mistaken, 115 pounder. What weight class are these fights up north going down at? Is there not really a weight class? You're fighting bigger girls.
All over. I fought from 105 to 135. I did the 135-pound hook and shoot tournament with, remember when Julie Kedzie won?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I came out with a first round win, and then I weighed 118 pounds, I think, and then first round win, and then I got triangle choked by Molly
Helsel.
Yeah. It was funny because I wasn't a striker, and I went out and I just jabbed her really hard. She sat down. I was like, oh, ran right into the triangle. Damn it. Yeah. Oh well, but yeah, it was a good time. And then I finally got to fight at 105 for my first bout my second time in Japan. I made 105, and that was brutal because you make weight and then you fight right away, basically, like 3 hours later, and I was hurt. But I made it and I won. But I was a hurting unit. He's like, just drink some water. I can't.
Yeah, the trip can also be rough, but let's focus on hook and shoot for a little bit. Now, you mentioned the tournament, but your first time there was at the Second Evolution show, which was an all-women show, and you fought at Mandy Stewart. What do you remember about that experience?
Again, getting triangle choked. Damn girls. I didn't know what I was doing quite yet, and I tried to slam them out, and I'm just trying to wrestle them like a little bulldog, and that doesn't really work with girls that have, some good jiu-jitsu. Then I figured it out because it irritated me, but yeah, it was fun.
Okay.
Oh, and we met Roxanne for the first time there.
Okay, that's cool. Hey, Eddy, were you accompanying her at this time? Were you her corner person?
Yeah.
I've only fought with Eddy. I didn't fight prior to beating him.
Oh, okay, that's cool. He fought without you, but that's okay. Now,
well, I fought a few times without him, I guess. But.
Eddy, so let me ask you this. Did you ever do like the crazy Dennis Hallman fights where it's like you do a round, go back to the corner, drink a beer, come back out for second round, that kind of stuff?
No.
I did.
Oh, you probably did. Yeah, no shit. He was that.
Yeah, we had gloves on show fights. We had King of the Cage fights.
King of the Cage.
Yeah,
King of the Keg. Okay, that's cool.
The birth of like tag team submission wrestling was a lot of those shows.
Okay, so your experience, I knew that you were one of those hardcore guys that your experience just, you can't look at Sure Dog and get the whole.
I'll go. That's what it was like.
That's cool.
Let's do it.
I'll tell you a funny story. Shayna Baszler, the woman fighter, she did her first fights in the South Dakota area at a show where they would start out wearing boxing gloves, but they wouldn't tie them. And when they were ready to grapple, they would throw the boxing gloves off and just do the grappling. So you had make up the rules as Dennis made them up that day, kind of thing, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Put a number on how many, was that like every weekend kind of thing? Or how many of those fights really do you think you really have under your belt?
Pretty close. So I imagine I have more close to 60 bouts total. So I was at 42 before my 21st birthday.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So yeah, at that point you started obviously to become a little bit more of a name, and then once you're, in the MMA circuit and hopefully, getting booked and maybe even fights with a paper contract and stuff, you
Right.
kind of got to take it a little more seriously. But 40 something fights by your 21st birthday, that's amazing. So
Yeah.
now let's see here. So we had Quincy Clark in August. In September of 2000, you fought Chris Irvine in the UFCF. That's Matt Hume's show. And then
And that was the first one, really, how that all works out. That Chris Irvine was the first time.
okay, I got you. And so at some point you get into these Rumble on the Roseland shows, and that's Chael Sonnen, isn't it? Wasn't he
Yeah.
the
Co-promotion with Kevin Keeney, as Chael Sonnen was.
okay. So what was your experience with those guys? Because they obviously knew that you were pretty good. They put you in with kind of their frontline guys all the way through. Ryan Schultz, Ryan Line was a pretty tough guy. But Chris Wilson was a guy they had a lot of hope for and things like that. But talk about meeting Chael at the beginning and that sort of stuff. Like, what was all that like? Did you have to take it more seriously, or was it still kind of like a fun time?
I was still in quite a rowdy time back then. When I got introduced to those guys, I was still quite full piss and vinegar, and like I could do anything anywhere. With the Northwest the way it was, I assumed that we were around such high level guys that we were the top guys, even though no one was talking about us. I knew the guys that were doing so well that I was with, that we went other places like that, and like Chael and Randy and Matt, they all looked at my coaches like assets to them. They were like teaching them guys. So I thought even more like, oh, we're way better than these guys. And I hear interviews now from them talking about us hillbillies coming down from Washington. I was like, what? They were all what? They thought we were a bunch of like redneck backwoods dudes coming showing some weird philosophy to them. And I thought we were like Class C world champions coming down showing techniques. I had no clue what the perception was of what we were getting into. So I was just a rowdy kid that was down to do anything as far as they were concerned.
Oddly, you're kind of both right. You know what I mean? Because you were pretty damn good, but Dennis is from a small town.
Listen, when I met her, the way I was being and the way I was acting, she's like, "What are you doing with this sport?" I'm like, "I'm gonna be a world champion." She looked at me and goes, "Not the way you're training." And then she set me straight. I was like, "What do you mean?" I looked back and like, "Oh yeah."
Okay.
I was really hitting it hard on both ends of the party wagon and the training wagon. I thought it was so a life of Sam, so.
And I was the head going to nationals and separate
wrestling. In college and other things and see the right way done.
Okay, so actually, you would have to say Lisa's the more disciplined one here, huh?
When you watch my career, you see the red go away, and that's when we got together.
Okay.
Until then.
I got you. Okay, so let's get back over to Lisa. So Lisa's in at least the trips to Hook and Shoot. That's Indiana. It's it's a air flight and things like that. So that's kind of a big deal. Did you also wind up fighting on some of those Chael Sonnen shows, or did they not do women's fights there?
I did a Rumble in the Roseland. Those were before Hook and Shoot. I believe. Is it FCFF or what is that Rumble? Yeah. Oh, okay. I did 2 fights there. I won one and I lost one.
Okay, cool. Now I'm doing some research here. Actually, I got this for you. Shoni Plagman.
Yeah, there
you go. Yeah.
Look at that. and that was a Rumble in the Roseland 13 on June 14th. So was she? Yeah. So yeah, getting punched in the face is not pleasant there. Now, actually, Jeff match made the Hook and Shoot shows, but I think I actually match made for you against Jessica Aguilar in Florida. Mm-hmm. And Jessica was an American top team girl, also kind of like yourself, somebody who was, especially by 2006, kind of taking the sport pretty serious on the women's side. What do you remember about that fight? Because you actually got out of there with a win, and Jessica went on to UFC and things like that. What was your feeling on that fight?
Yeah, I was supposed to fight Erica Montoya on
Okay.
that show. We pulled out and they found Jessica, who was, I guess, fairly new, but had some boxing background and maybe a little bit of groundwork. I just remember her being tough. And then I won though, but yeah.
What technique did you win with? You remember?
Didn't I win? Did I rear naked choker at the end or?
Yes, you did. Yes, you
Okay,
did. Okay. Okay. The brain cells are still there. That's good too.
That's
Now, Erica Montoya is a name from the past. Huh? You were booked to fight her and never got a chance to, huh?
Yeah, she disappeared.
I actually saw that she was spent some time working for the UFC as a Spanish language commentator.
Oh,
Believe it or
wow.
not. So she popped up there eventually, but there was, some weird things that happened with a trainer and a lawsuit and stuff. So that's her story, not yours. So
Yeah.
we won't worry about that too much. But yeah, she was a promising fighter at some point.
Yeah.
After that, you went down to San Diego to fight in Valor Fighting.
Yep.
What was it?
Patricia Lastova. She was a joke. I don't know who this chick was. She was a big weird joke. She actually even fought I think Gina Carano at one point.
Okay. Wow.
So this girl was weird. So that was just a weird matchup, and I just took her down. I think I choked her out too. I don't know. I or armbarred her.
Yep, you got the armbar.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah,
good deal.
and I fought out Eddie at that fight. My cousin cornered me and my brother. So that was fun. But yeah, she was an interesting girl. But yeah, I fought all across the board, 105 to 135, and just wherever I could get one in.
That's cool. So here we go with back to Eddy for a minute here. So Eddy, like you said, you were doing the circuit. You fought a few times on the Rumble on the Rock. They put you in with Ryan Healy, Ryan Schultz, good guys all across the board.
Yeah.
And Paul Purcell, you took a draw with Paul. And eventually, as you said, you started to pick up some wins. But there is one loss I wanted to ask you about because just Shannon Rich.
I knew that was Kevin.
What happened there? You only, no disrespect to Shannon, but I would kind of consider you a little bit higher on the pecking order than Shannon Rich. What went on there? Too much partying?
Yes and no. I had a scheduled fight on that Thursday night in Idaho against Josh Koscheck. And then fight again Saturday night against Shannon because I had a trainer that didn't think anyone was worth a shit other than himself. So he set me up against Josh Koscheck on a Thursday night and was like, I asked him questions. He said, "Oh, he's just some shitbag wrestler. You'll triangle him, no problem." And I said, "Okay, no big deal." Josh Koscheck had himself flown out for free to fight because he was trying to scramble up some wins to get in the UFC. He's already got a contract that we had no clue about.
So you actually fought Josh Koscheck?
Didn't actually. I got there, I taped up and got ready to fight. He got medically pulled out and had a nasty staph infection on his leg.
Okay.
Couldn't even start warming up. He was sweating and dying, and so that happened, but it didn't happen. We drove back home, 17 hours home, stayed a night in a hotel where, again, my coach, the famous Hallman, and his antics, hired a hooker to go around to all of his fighters' hotel room and see if she'd stay him up all night. Typically, you do this to the other team, but he did to our team. So I didn't get called a hooker, but the idea was she was still banging on everybody's door all night long, and it just fucked with everybody. And he thought it was a great big joke and it was fun. I can't blame it all on that. I do have more complaints though, because I took down Shannon, mounted him, and the ref started us back on our feet. And that was the beginning of the end for Shannon. He got mounted. I was going to hit him 3 or 5 times. He would tapped out, no problem. Typically.
Yeah.
So started over. I made a big funky mistake and he armbarred me. So I was all over the place. Dumb kid.
Okay, and that's understandable. I mean, Shannon at least had enough technique that he could be dangerous if you gave him a chance. Yeah. So and he has 100 fights, so he knew how to put on a show and stuff. But he took you serious. At least you mounted him, so he said, "Oh shit, I can't let that happen again." And Holman, Holman, you talked about the piss bag. He actually had a joke one day with a garbage bag full of water in a hotel where he was doing a prank on Frank Shamrock of all people. Were you involved in that? Were you there for that one?
I heard about it. I remember we went down to the what was it, WC back then? And I remember Frank Stan, all of us pissed off about what he had done just recently. It was right after that. And they had a big square off this bar afterwards. And that was my first ever even meeting the guy. And I just thought he's staring at us all pissed off. I said, what's wrong? I would hope to meet him, but he was ready to fight our whole team. So we had to kind of make our way out.
Yeah, I mean, pissing off a UFC champion is only something someone like Dennis Hallman would be into doing. You know what I mean? So put you in a bad situation. That's very interesting. So let's take a couple of steps back. You fought Spencer Fisher on the IFC. What was the Spencer fight like? 'Cause Spencer's from the East Coast, but he went on to the UFC and had a career there, kind of jam packed with highlight fights. What do you remember about the Spencer Fisher fight?
Well,
Is that the sport fighter?
yeah, it was Tahoe, right? Yeah, Lake Tahoe elevation. So at the time that I got that fight, I wasn't even training. I was in between work and just kind of living miserable. They offered the fight and said I could potentially get a fight contract after that, and I said, hell yeah. So I took it, not thinking about anything. And I really wasn't slated to fight Spencer at all. I had probably some average Joe I was going to fight, which would have been fine with how terribly in shape I was. We all went down there together, me, Spencer, and this guy, and a couple others in a limo. They got us our brain scans taken, and my opponent had some abnormalities and couldn't fight. So we swapped the card up, and I got the pull the card with Spencer, and we didn't know anything about each other hardly at all. Yeah. So I gave him all I had the first round, which was a pretty easy win the first round. But then I gassed out like a bitch.
And that's one of the things I'm talking about with you is where you don't get the respect you get because people say you I know you later did the UFC TV show, but Spencer Fisher went on to the UFC, and that was a fight that you were respectable at. That was not a fight that you look bad in at all.
No.
So yeah, like I said, you get very little credit where you actually deserve a lot of credit, except for that Chan Rich thing. Okay. Now,
I feel you.
now after Shannon, you fought, you came back, and I think Sport Fight was now a Matt Lindland show, and that's where you fought Chris Wilson, who was a pretty serious dude. He's a kid who grew up in Brazil, and was mixed in with Team Quest and was one of their guys as well. I'm sure that they put you in there with him thinking that he might get a win over you, and it didn't go that way. What do you remember about that fight?
I was in good shape for the fight. I came in there ready. That's really all there was to it. When I was ready, I was on point. Okay. I came there ready, and I feel like there was no flaw with that. I dominated everywhere there was, and it went very easy, honestly.
Okay, and he was pretty cool about remembering the fight. It was kind of early in his career, and he said, Eddy Ellis is one of those guys. At that point, he was 21, 20 years old, and he's got 30 fights. And he was still like nervous, and he looked like he was walking around his living room, chill and comfortable. Did you sense that in him? Did you feel like he was a little uptight and nervous? Were you able to take advantage of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I had this misconception that their team was low caliber, honestly. Like with my coaching, and they were asking him for advice and how to teach them. And I was thinking, these guys, you know what I mean? Like I know what this guy knows, and he's asking them he's being asked to teach them. So I felt like they had no grappling skills. I was very self confident. You know what I mean? In a maybe an unrealistic way, but it helped a lot of times.
Okay, yeah. Well, a lot of fighters, and especially when you get to the higher levels, you kind of got to think you can beat everybody. Yeah. Is that an accurate assessment? Lisa, you think so too?
If you don't have that kind of confidence, what the hell are you doing it for? You got to go in there believing in yourself and believing in your training. It's part of the game.
Okay. I appreciate that. I'm gonna stay with Eddy here for a minute because I think later on, I'm not sure who it was that you Chris fought for the Sport Fight Championship, and I think you were trying to set up a rematch, but he beat a guy that you had beaten before. For the Sport Fight Championship, or I'm sorry, he beat a guy that you had lost to. Was it Brad Blackburn? Could that be correct? Is that?
No, he beat Healy. He beat Pat Healy, so it was.
Oh, okay. So, and that's understandable. Now, he felt like after that you kind of had a little more respect for him. Was that something that you noticed? Respecting him, or was it more in the passing of time there, or did you notice Chris getting better?
Both. I knew Chris was getting better, and the passing of time, I learned more about the sport, being more mature about myself. Like I said, after we got together, it was more of a realistic training, and that really brings light to what you're doing. Okay. So I can see his skill level as well.
Okay. Now, Lisa, Chris says that there was a time where you caught him online at one of the concession stands, and you were like, "Yeah, you're gonna get your ass kicked by Eddy again," or you were kind of talking a little smack.
Most likely. I didn't have respect for him either. I just was following suit and just drunk probably.
Well, it's nice that you had each other's back from the very beginning, kind of thing like that too. You know what I mean? So it's like you're both confident in each other. That's helped you guys out, I'm sure, because like I said, I'm looking at these careers and I don't feel like you got a ton of love from any particular promoters. But Lisa, let's go hop over to you after that Valor fighting. That looks like then you got that big phone call. How did you get over to Japan for the first time? You fought in Smack Girl, which was at the time a recognized women's show and a pretty big deal. And you fought Miko Matsumoto. You went over there with a couple of American girls. I see Molly Helsel was on the card.
Yep.
So I see Tama-chan was on the card. So she had fought for me a couple of times. This looks like it was a pretty good card, an all women's card. What was your memory of that? Was this like kind of like a big deal for you, or?
It was huge. It was amazing. We couldn't even believe it. We just were like, get our passports. Oh my gosh. It was beyond exciting. And then getting the win was just like, oh my gosh, I get to come back. Like, I have this picture of me just with my arms in the air, like, oh, like it's ridiculous, but it's very memorable. One of my most memorable fights of my entire career.
Eddy, were you with her?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Was that your first trip overseas for both of you?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
sure.
that's cool that you guys were able to do it together. How was the experience of not just the fight, but the culture shock of going to Japan? I mean, they usually treat you pretty well, but sometimes that's just on the surface, sometimes the language barrier, the food, things like that. How'd you adapt to that? Did you like it or did you not like it?
Oh, we love Japan. I got a chance to compete there 6 times. And, the first time we just fell in love and we were just so ecstatic to go back. I even twice went back without Eddy. One time he was on The Ultimate Fighter and they called me like on a 2-day notice for, what is it? Judo boxing. So I did that, and I brought a girlfriend out there with me, and then brought my family. Another time Eddy was here, I think he had like surgery or something, or was slated. I don't know why. He should have come. But yeah, so then he didn't come. But Japan's, the culture, everything's amazing. We thought about wanting to move there. I mean, it was just the smell, the streets, everything. It was neat. When I fought for Deep, and when I refought, what's her name?
Megumi?
No. It was Miku again. I refought Miku in Deep. And they're playing some games around there, some of the promoters and stuff, kind of keeping me away from food. I don't want to interview. Sorry, buddy. Sorry, one of my students.
No problem. You can take care of it. I can edit. You can take care of it.
Yeah. But it was fun. It was a good time. I mean, everything about Japan was cool, but they do play for they bat for their team, obviously. And they didn't want me to win that second fight against Miku. I mean, they were keeping me in interviews and stuff like that. That's the only negative thing I noticed about them. But other than that, every trip, everything was great.
Okay. That's cool. So now that was Miku the first time. And then you got the fighter you said in Deep. So let's take you went back to Smack Girl September and then November. So they were obviously impressed you, and then you got back-to-back wins the second time you fought Misaki Takimoto.
Mhm.
Do you remember kind of being in the Smack Girl rotation and kind of starting to feel, I don't know, like maybe like Japan was the place to be for women's fighting, because there wasn't UFC or any real show that big in the States.
Yeah, I feel like they're definitely for us smaller girls. It was just the place to be. I mean, there wasn't a lot for us here in the States, except for some random fights I could take. And that was my second time there in Japan. Was the first time I'd seen 105. So that was pretty crazy. But yeah, it was the place to be. I felt like at the time, and then kind of the U.S. started blowing up a little bit more, and then yeah, then the UFC picked it up.
Okay, now talk to me. How what were these paydays like?
$500, $1,000.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the trip's kind of expensive. You know, it's not something you could just come out of pocket for generally. But yeah, the paydays, just so that people are aware, they're still, you know, not really paying the bills with the paydays on the fight. So you're still doing it for the love and basically the trip.
Yeah, and that's what we really got addicted to, was traveling, the hotel, the smell, all of it. I mean, we heavily miss it now. We realize that was, I mean, granted, yeah.
Yeah, I got to go to Japan a bunch of times. Like I think I got there about 15 times. Yeah, I actually I think I know Tokyo better than I know like San Jose, which is where I live now in Costa Rica. Like I could get in trouble in Tokyo. So so you're in Smack Girl, you're enjoying the trip, you're feeling like, okay, things are moving along, and now you come back and you fight in a casino in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So did that feel like a step back? What was that show? What was that like? I mean, Coeur d'Alene, don't get me wrong, beautiful town. I love that town with the lake and the mountains and stuff. It's a really nice place, but it had to feel like you took a step into a Coeur d'Alene casino.
I was taking them where I could get it. I didn't really put me.
It wasn't really high. It wasn't like,
yeah. No, and that was a rematch. So I had taken a fight, and I'd actually gotten kind of beat up on that one also. I was pretty sick, and I tried to pull out of the fight, and they said, please fight. And I was like, I feel like hell, like I'm super sick. And then they offered me more money, and I was just like, this doesn't even matter, but okay. Like, they wouldn't leave me alone. And so, about it. And my friend was supposed to pull me out of the fight, and he never did. So either way, so I fought and just took a beating because I had nothing in me. And then I rematched her and I choked her unconscious. So it was good. It was a good rematch. So I needed that, and that was
okay. That's good that you get that one back. And that's kind of like that Northwest attitude of like not really pulling out of fights. Like in general, that's kind of like a credence. Eddy, let me ask you, do you remember ever pulling out of a fight like that yourself as well?
No.
Yeah,
No.
see what I mean? See what I mean? There were a few that you maybe should have, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about how when you hooked up with Lisa, things got organized for you, and you started to notch off wins, and you were picking up a lot of wins. Shortly after the Chris Wilson fight, you went on a streak where you picked up wins. You had a 3-fight win streak, then you lost, and you had like a 8 or 9 fight win streak after that. So 12 and 13 and 1. Let's go through some of those first. Do you remember fighting Cedric Marks?
Yeah.
Well, what do you remember about that fight? Do you know about what happened with Cedric?
Yeah. Well,
we'll get into that.
Remember about it, really. No, he ended up being a murderer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, I think he's actually considered a serial murderer. Like he killed a few people. So. Yeah, he was not a nice person. He was kind of. Well, what do you remember about that fight? Because he was actually, like a tough guy.
Right, and that was my come up of like I was just trying to experience striking, even though I was more of a grappler anyhow. So I did dance around a little bit for that, just to figure out if I could do this kind of thing. But really, once we got engaged, I took him down, took him up pretty quickly. It was the second round, but like I did a lot of dance around jockey, just kind of figuring him out. Didn't think he had much from the ground though. He didn't have much answers to it.
Okay. Now, as we're moving right along here, it looks like eventually one of the wins in the big win streak you had was in Strikeforce. You fought on a Strikeforce show against Steve Berger. What do you remember about the Strikeforce show at that point? Because I think at this point, Bodog had kind of run its course, and Strikeforce was the next big show in terms of competition for the UFC. Did it feel like a step up? And what do you remember about the Steve Berger fight? Because Berger's a guy I know pretty well as well.
I was excited about the fight. I had a teammate previously fight him. Benji Rag beat him on the UFC, so I was excited to have a guy that was a veteran. And I was thinking that Strikeforce was going to be something that did contend with the UFC. I was excited to be on that show. I broke my hand with Steve Berger right in the first round. It was also a good experience to know how it works when you break your hand in a fight and see how you handle and manage. So I mean that was a huge experience for me, even though like the fight didn't go as smooth or look as well, but knowing that I could make it through a fight with a busted hand and a win, it took it all out of me, but it was doable. And it's a big step up when it comes down to the fight longevity. You know you can do something once you've done it.
Yeah. Now this looks like you had was this maybe your first 15-minute fight? Out and out 15 minutes. So to go to a decision with a guy like Berger, like you said, who was a veteran, and another pro vet, he's a guy like he walked in with baggage every day of his life to fight. Do you know that his mom was a paraplegic, and him and his father took care of her his whole life until she passed away. So every time he went to a fight, he left that at home and I had to come back to it and stuff. So just one of the mentally toughest guys I've ever met, and a nice guy. Are you being friends with your opponents, or are you still being rude to him?
By that time I was more collected.
Okay. Now, what was the Strikeforce pay like? Well, that had to be a bit of a leap up, right?
Yeah, it was definitely a leap up. Yeah, it was like 2-2 or something like that.
Okay.
I imagine that's what it was. It's hard to remember.
Okay, all right. And even though that doesn't sound like much now, at the time, it was a step up, and that's a good thing. Do you have it? Do you find that motivational? I know you both feel like, you're fighting kind of for the passion of it and stuff. But I always thought, once you break through and you make a little bit of money, it's hard to go back and fight for less. Is that? Am I right on that?
Every benchmark, you feel like you deserve that next step and no below. You win a belt, you deserve the 500 belts. That's how it feels to the fight. You don't want to lessen yourself ever, but I mean, it is what it is. But typically, that's how you feel for sure.
Okay, I agree. I appreciate that. Now, getting back over to Lisa. Lisa, you had a Bodog fight. The first Bodog fight that you had was I think the first and only one, but you fought Megumi Fuji, who a lot of people consider maybe the best women's fighter of that era, especially in the lower weight classes. You fought her in Vancouver. What do you remember about that experience, other than maybe the drunk matchmaker?
Just a lot of drama kind of was ensued with that. And what's his face? I guess Josh Barnett was not really cool. Good night. He was really arrogant and didn't really want to. He was just really arrogant, so he was really hard to talk to. And then when somebody's that arrogant, I get all pissed off, and then I'm not really easy to talk to. And so there's just a lot of miscommunication, I think. We ended up fighting, and I believe I got armbarred.
Late in the first, but like with 10 seconds left. So how'd you feel the early part of the fight went?
There was so much drama, and but it was a good experience. It was fun. They had a really good promotion. It was neat. It was neat. I wish I had not allowed that to affect me so much.
Okay. Now, you do know I was a matchmaker for that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And those cards were difficult to keep a hold of, and I didn't realize that, I know Josh, and I know, if I had to make an excuse for him, he's got that pro wrestling mentality too, where he will play mind games and stuff beforehand. Now, didn't you know him, Eddy? Did you know Josh from the Munson scene and stuff like that? So did you feel put off by him, like he was being a jerk to you too?
Yeah, yeah. Early on, he was really nice. He was a really humble kind of guy. When he left this area, when he left Northwest, he became that big WWF kind of mentality. Like he wasn't that kind of person when I grew up around him. He was a lot more personal, a lot nicer. He was at one of my sister's parties. We hung out, and we had no communication at Bodog, and he almost seemed like he just seemed untrustworthy. He seemed like he was trying to get one over on you guys and one over on us. So I didn't want to associate with him.
Bye guys, for good night.
Yeah, I met Josh at his very first competition. Matt Hume took him to Abu Dhabi as part of his team, and I happened to be there. And so I knew him kind of like you did, before and after. And hey, he got to be a big star, and he got to make himself a good bunch of money. So how can I say he's wrong? He kind of left the littler people behind, but it leaves you a little bit. It's not the kind of thing that leaves a good taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
You guys, so very interesting. So, and Megumi, he was kind of, in my opinion, I think she was great without him. You know what I mean? It's like, I think he was kind of trying to get credit for training her and things. And I think, I'm sure he had a hand in it, but I don't think he made her like, from start to finish kind of thing. So I understand a little bit about what you're saying there about the attitude and stuff like that. So it's a shame because, like I said, you guys at this point deserve respect. You know what I mean? It's like you made it up there and stuff like that, and he disrespects you. That's kind of, a little bit of an uncool move there.
Yeah.
To each their own, I guess. If that makes him feel good, then to be like that, I don't know. It's so far in the past.
Yeah. I actually got choked out by his trainer in my hotel room. He was there with Eric Paulson, and me and him finished a bottle of Jack Daniels, and we're rolling around. And he was obviously, I have no business with anybody like that. You know what I mean? So he was teaching me, and but that was the extent of my experience. That happened after negotiating with Josh and his wife to come to Bodog, and obviously we weren't able to make that happen. So yeah, I get a little bit of what you're saying. We may have to talk a little more offline about that. So it looks like, did you go back to Japan at that point, War of the Roses, or was that in California, where you fought Megumi Yabushita?
California. They were trying to make me a poster child for this promotion, Fatal Fence Fighting.
Okay.
Yep.
FFF.
Yeah, and I won. I beat. Who did I beat first? I beat another little Asian gal for the belt, and then I fought the gal we just mentioned later on.
Yeah, you fought a little bit further back before the Megumi Fuji fight. I skipped over, but you did beat Taeko Nagamine at FFF2. You fought at FFF1 against Masako Yoshida. So they were bringing in, they did invest in bringing in opponents for you. And by the time they get to Yabushita now, I know pretty well. She had a big judo background. She was also a pro wrestler. And to be honest, like a hard woman. You know what I mean? She's tough and all, tough as nails. And big, much bigger than you. So what do you remember about that fight?
She was big. She was tougher than I thought she was going to be, but we still got the win. I think, didn't I win a decision?
Yeah, you won a decision after 3 rounds.
Yeah, now, I don't remember how it went exactly though.
Okay.
I don't really remember.
No problem. A win's a win. She's a real pro. I'll be honest with you. I have a lot of respect for her.
She fought the likes of like Aaron Tohill.
Oh yeah. I mean? Oh yeah. No. She I'll tell you funny, she gave me a t-shirt. My last name is Iterade, and she gave me a t-shirt that in Japanese says Yabu, which was her nickname, versus Itu, which is her nickname for me. So I like her. I like her a lot. She was definitely a good worker, and that's an excellent win for you on your record in my book.
Got the baby awake. She's sick, so she wants to hang out for a minute. She's hurting.
No problem.
Aw.
That definitely qualifies as more important than the interview. Oh, look at that. Hello.
Hi, baby. She's hurting.
Oh, yeah, she looks a little droopy, sad. Oh,
Just
there's a
woke up.
smile. Nice. Okay,
Yeah.
this is a treat. This is a first for the MMA museum interview. We had a little second generation action going on there. So what happened to that Femme Fatale show? You did the first three and then it kind of faded away. What was your experience with that?
They're kind of, I think, a little bit of con artists. Kind of, you know, they put a bunch of money into this and they made a lot of promises that they didn't come forward or come to fruition with. I think they just went bankrupt, quite frankly, and they had a big idea and it just didn't really work out for them the best. But yeah, the matchmaker for that, Eddy, is it Millis?
Millis.
Okay.
He is a big talker.
Okay. He's a veteran of the fight game, though. He was known out there.
He was, and he was nice, you know, real nice at first. And then, like I said, I don't know if it's just, you know, I just kind of got the short end of the stick because he was getting another short end of the stick. I don't know. But the things that he was promising didn't come to fruition. Nor did with the money backers. And I think they just went.
The kind of same thing happened to Bodog on a bigger level, but you know, Bodog kind of, you know, we had contracts at the end when I left that they stopped honoring. They didn't fulfill the contracts that they had at some point, and then they did fizzled out. So, I guess, you know, if you're spending somebody's money and they're not getting their money back, you're only going to last so long. You know, people don't like to lose money, unfortunately.
Exactly. So I mean, it's understandable, but oh well.
Yes. Yep. So now after the FFF series, you went back to Smack Girl a couple of times. So these are the follow-up shows to Japan, and now you're winning a lot in Japan. So did you get to the point in Japan where you were doing the autograph thing and you had people that knew who you were and being stopped on the street kind of thing every once in a while?
Yeah, they'd come to the hotel because they knew we were arriving, and so they'd have gifts and chopsticks and pictures, and then they'd have a picture for me to sign and a picture for me to take, you know. So they're really thoughtful fans, like the most thoughtful fans, and the competitors are some of the most thoughtful people. I really enjoy their classiness. Bye, guys. Oh yeah, you want to go on the interview? Bye, Ken. You got no clue.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good time. It was a really, Japan was just remarkable. I can't wait to go back. I want to go back to Disneyland there. I want to bring my kids. So.
Okay, that's a good goal for sure. That's a lot of fun. So let's get back over to Eddy. Eddy, now you go from the Strike Force thing, and Strike Force, another one of those shows that I think their story was that they eventually got bought out by the UFC, that they were purchased by the UFC, and that the UFC had, what they actually did was buy their contracts. Did you not have a long-term contract? Was that something where you had a crack at the UFC at that point, or it didn't work out? What was the deal?
It was just that one-time fight. I always just talked about it, how you did well and they were going to call you back, but we were just open contract, so nothing ever got settled.
And when the UFC bought them, it was a done deal. Were you ever in contact with Joe Silva or anyone like that trying to get in, or?
No, not until after the Ultimate Fighter.
Okay. All right. We'll get to that. So at that point, you come back to something called Cage Sport.
Yeah.
And you took a win over Strider Davis, and then you took, like, it looks like almost 2 years off. And you took all 2010 off, unless there are fights that are not documented, which at that time period might be unusual. And then you came back to Cage Sport and beat Tim Welsh. And this is that part where, right in the middle of that winning streak we were talking about. Well, what was going on there in your life? What do you think? What do you remember?
2010, got married.
Oh yeah, we got married.
I don't remember like why I took a year off. I've had a few surgeries and things like that, and throughout the times that might have been one of those years.
Your hip popped out of place. Like he had a series of injuries happen.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
cuts and stuff kept getting just
Yeah,
weirdness.
I forgot about the whole year being gone.
Good night. You too.
Okay, and
Uh,
I have another idea also. Um, is it possible that you were kind of deciding as a couple to concentrate on Lisa's career? Because she went back to Japan, fought in deep, and then 2010, while you were off, she got a run in Bellator, which at that point was a show that was on television and, considered the #2 show in the early going. How was the Bellator running? Was that something where you decided maybe to back Lisa as well? Would that have been a factor?
So yeah, that was definitely a part of it. She would get a much bigger contracts and more commitments. We also had our gym had started originally in like '06, very small. By '08, we actually picked up as a business, and that was when it was actually like necessary to actually be running some sort of classes, and I was working more or less. Rather than usually our gym just was consisted of us training at trade camps, sparring practice for us only. And once we were in business, that's I think about it, that was more my focus at the time.
Okay, and that's it's a smart move because you've already put in the grind. You know what I mean? You've already paid your dues. Concentrating on the business end, if you can make money off a gym, there are a lot of people that actually started gymming and have to close it as well. So you're still going strong, kind of thing. You laid a good foundation there.
Yeah. Well, we started. Well, I mean, I realized early on I got hurt or injured. I could teach. I could teach forever. I could teach broken. And so, I invested in this gym like as a mat room for the camaraderie of the team. So it really it doesn't kill me not being on the mat to be able to do it like that. My guys do.
Okay. And what was we'll get to Lisa when she's able to, but what was your experience taking her to Bellator and stuff like that? Did it feel like a big show? Did it feel like and you said that we'll ask her about the contract and how good the money was or what that was like, but you obviously had an asset with Lisa. Did they treat her as a star? Did they treat her like somebody that they were going to back? And did you feel good there?
Yeah, I did. Bellator was fun. It was new to them. I didn't know or like the boxing promoter they had in the beginning. It was
Uh,
like a
Bjorn Rebney?
It was the very beginning of Bellator boxing.
Oh,
He was
was it Bjorn?
he was Bjorn.
Yeah.
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 Bjorn? Yeah.
He was an interesting guy. Because he came from such a different background, like the well, he's Oscar De La Hoya's guy at some point in time. But it was a fresh new organization. At the time, the UFC wasn't big for girls still at all. So every step Lisa got in one of those bigger promotions, it was the next biggest thing.
Cool. Now, so Coker wasn't there yet.
No,
Okay, because you would have run into him at Strikeforce, but you didn't have a chance to work with him in Bellator yet. Now,
no.
things went well at Bellator in the very beginning here. She reeled off 2 wins in a row. Was that tournament style that they were doing? Were they doing a tournament over the course of time there, or was it just single fights?
There were single fights, but it was a tournament sport.
Okay, where were the shows? Do you remember?
The Kansas City Light District.
Yeah, Kansas City and Outdoor Mall. That was with Ashlyn Daly.
Okay.
And then the second.
First one was
Stephanie Frausto.
Oh, it was the Frosto girl. No, you're right. Yeah. And then it was the tournament. And Aisling was part of the first round of the tournament.
So the first one was.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah.
So was this a jump in money for you? At least was the money interesting? Was it a little better? Well, how would you describe it? Give us a number. Come on, Lisa.
I don't remember.
It was better.
Yeah, it was better, but I don't remember. I just don't remember. I mean,
Okay.
we were always fighting for more money. I mean, that's what we did. And sometimes it caught us in the ass, and sometimes it did better for us.
Yeah, and I mean, and just to be honest, it's not like you've got, hey, I still have some of that money put away. I mean, we're not talking about life-changing money or anything like that, but it is a motivational tool. Is that what they did? So that you won in the first round against Aisling Daly, and then you get a rematch with Megumi? What?
I did. I beat Aisling. It was a 3-round fight with Aisling. I just kind of kept her in half guard and beat her up. And she just really didn't have any answers for me, but I also couldn't finish her. She was tough. Then I had Megumi for the second round. I was having issues with a manager. Who was that little son of a bitch? God, he was horrible. He was a little shit. He was horrible. And I didn't know it. And again, one of those mental things, I wish I could have just not dealt with that and fought better. And I didn't give Megumi a fight for anybody to care about. So yeah, and I lost that fight.
It looks like you did bet. Like again, at this point, everybody's hyping her as the number one girl, especially now in the weight class and stuff like that. But you did give her a better fight the first time, and I wouldn't have called it. I would have thought you would have done better in the first time. So it was mental baggage you were carrying.
Definitely. A lot of my losses are a lot of mental baggage that I just have a lot of regrets.
So come on, Eddy, who was the manager? I know you remember.
His name, I just remember him saying, "Make it happen." His little slogan and shit. He's a little
Ryan, no, what was his name? I don't know. He was a little bitch, like complete little bitch.
Okay, that's cool. Well, maybe we better not mention him then. Now,
maybe we should know.
well, we can remember. You want to get it right too. You don't want to sink the wrong guy, but
True.
But so let me ask you. So now here Bellator brings you back. You're coming off the Megumi loss. You know they finished out the tournament, so you sat out 6 months. Now that kind of feels like you're a pro fighter now. You know you're taking a lot of time between fights. Did I lose you? Are you with me?
Not yet.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. I guess my Sherdog screen just blanked out, but that's okay. You got Jessica Aguilar in a rematch with Bellator. What was that like?
That was a tough fight. We beat each other up, so it was a good fight. I wish I'd used a little bit more of my takedowns, but I was hell bent about just trying to stand up finally, feeling comfortable to stand up. Which, you know, she came from more of a boxing background, so I should have incorporated more of my striking with my takedowns. But we just kind of went toe to toe, and she won.
Okay. Now let me ask you, Dave. You had fought her a lot earlier in her career, where you kind of described her as kind of younger, a replacement fighter, and a boxer first. Did you sense the improvement as well, or?
Oh, and I knew who she was. Obviously, we were on the world team together. We were friends, like training partner. I mean, yeah, I knew she was a lot better.
Okay. Okay, good. So much respect to her. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to go back to Eddy for a minute because I do have something happened on your Sherdog page and I'm not getting it right now. So Eddy, so 2011, you come back. You had taken 2010 off, and the Bellator experience went down for Lisa. You went out with a 3-fight winning streak, and you come back and you pick up, and you get right back on the horse, and you reel off another 5 in a row, including wins over JT Taylor, and a Russian fellow named Evgeny Latkin. That looks like it may have been a fight overseas as well. What do you remember about this 5-fight winning streak when you came back? You obviously were taking things more seriously.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the only thing that stopped the streak on that, I guess that Russian fight, I broke my orbital. And it was it was a recovery from that is what took the time off from there. I guess that was the beginning of the end, kind of when things started breaking through all my wins.
You'd already broke your jaw in England.
Yeah, that's a brutal injury, though. You know what I mean? That's a brutal injury because, you know, you like your eyes where they are.
Right. Yeah, it was another one of those learning lessons. What happens when that happens, and what you do in those situations.
Now, let me ask you, you had to go to a hospital in Moscow. What was that experience like?
No, you don't. They gave me butterfly band-aids and set me on my way.
Really? Okay.
Really?
We were flying 10 hours later.
I was busted and I still have the scars because they couldn't stitch me up, and then they just sent me home. So I was seeing double for the rest of the trip.
Mm-hmm.
And did they even tell you had a break, an orbital break, or you didn't even know until you got home?
I kind of knew something had happened because when I got hit, I felt something significant, and then my eyesight was gone. I couldn't see out of the eye at all until like later in the third round, even that eye came back to useful, but it was double vision because it was set up so high. I could tell something was off.
Man, you know, that's a really tough thing too, because like I mentioned, it's not, you shouldn't fly with that injury. That's a dangerous injury to fly with. You know, you fly across the world and then find out you have it. You know.
Yeah, getting injured in Russia is a bad idea.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story. I've been to Russia a few times. I actually promoted fights in Russia, but I took guys over there in the early days, and we had a guy go to get stitched up, and the doctor was smoking while he was stitching. so
Sounds about right
That's
there.
about right.
And drinking
So-
his vodka.
definitely an interesting experience. Now, obviously with the injury, we'll forgive you, but there were a couple of guys on that show. This was not. This was a pretty serious show, and actually, you won the fight even with the eye break, huh?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This was a pretty serious show, as you had a young Peter Yan there. Peter
Yep.
later became a UFC champion, and the main event was Zabit, who's retired now, but I believe he left the UFC kind of undefeated. Did you get a chance to see those guys? Were you
Yeah.
impressed
Yeah.
with some of them? Did they jump out at you, or were they just kind
Jan
of?
won. Jan looked good. He was young then. He looked good. You could tell he was a up-and-comer. But I noticed most of those guys, all their interviews, they all talked about going to the one championship. Not one person spoke about the UFC over there.
Okay, so they wanted to go to the Asian show. One.
Every one of them talked about that, and I thought it was interesting. Me thinking, oh, like my audience here never speaks about anything but the UFC, but like to know that they actually want that a whole other side of the world wants to go somewhere else altogether. The UFC's not even the number one spot. I mean, like when it comes down to everywhere. It's
Okay.
interesting to find out.
Okay, and that makes sense in a way, because one does have a pretty extensive roster from Russia and the former Russian republics and things like that. So, did Zabit looks like he was in the main event? Did he jump out at you a little bit, or did you notice Jan more?
I didn't notice John more.
Okay,
He's more flashy, more just a lot more to him. He had an
Okay.
attitude too.
Okay, yeah, and we saw a little bit of that in UFC as well. So that makes sense. Now, despite you breaking your face, literally, it looks like you went back there for your next fight. So you got a win actually. So they brought you back, and you fought another Russian, Amir Khan Adayev. What was the experience in going back? What was the mindset in going back after the injury? You this time you were actually in a different country. You went to Tbilisi, Georgia, which at one point was Russia, but at this point is a different country. What was that whole experience like? Did the show seem smaller in Georgia, or was it just as big and well run?
Well, it was differently ran, and you could tell that they ran it in that country for a reason. They were doing some different deals. They ran definitely a wholly different situation. Like even them stopping the fight with me being kicked in the leg, there was blatant there was blatant fight organizing and things like that. It was corrupt big time.
Very correct.
Yeah, it's funny because Georgia has a reputation as being very big on the international wrestling scene too. And if you look at like the committees, the international committees, the Olympic committees and stuff, Georgians are a lot of the people that run those committees. And I'll use the word mafia. I don't care. You know what I mean?
When you go in a room with stacks of money in every currency, and it's just a different feel for sure. It wasn't nothing like that in Moscow.
Okay, so yeah, the Moscow was Moscow actually, the Russians, I thought, especially at that time, now, we can't even go over there anymore. But at that time, I thought they put on a good face for us. Like they kind of treated the Russians like crap, but like they wanted to treat and be good hosts.
They were good hosts of us. They were.
The Georgians weren't trying to be good hosts then, huh?
Well, so the Georgian itself, like we went and traveled around there, a great place. But how the ACB ran the organization while they're there, it was almost like they were unwatched. They could do whatever they could play how they wanted to in Georgia, but not in Moscow.
Okay. Very, very, very interesting. So you never went back. Did you ever get an offer to go back, or was that kind of trickling out?
Yeah, I did. I had actually an extensive, kind of a 2-year contract. It just ended up running out after we came home. I had another knee surgery. I'm off again. Just kind of let it explode.
Okay. Now those fights occurred in 2015, 2016. So what we skipped over was your actual UFC experience. You were taken to the UFC house. I believe you were on Tough Season 16. How did that come about? This was in 2012. What'd you do? Did you try out? Did you solicit? Did you go to one of the tryouts? So give me your whole UFC experience.
I've been to 3 tryouts up to that point.
Okay.
I went to the one that was in Seattle. That was here already. I went to 2 down in Vegas just to make my appearance. For that season, they called back old tryout people. They didn't do another tryout for us. They just called everybody that had been to a previous tryout that they thought would be hopeful, and they just set up an Ultimate Fighter through old tryouts. So I just got called up.
Okay.
And then they offered me an alternate position.
Okay. So did you actually live in Vegas in the house then?
Yeah.
And then then the guy didn't make
weight. I had the alternate, so I went down there, made weight, waited in the guy back. So somebody didn't make weight. Someone didn't make weight, so I would replace him right then.
Okay.
On the show.
And you got to do was a tryout fight, Eddy Ellis and David Michaud.
Yep.
Describe that. That's how, obviously kind of a big deal. You were motivated, obviously, for the show. Were you thinking you might be you have a run with the UFC?
Yeah, I assume so. I mean, at my time of that, third time trying out, I was a veteran more than most of the guys on the show. I kind of thought it was in my hands, the way it was set up. I know that they were hoping for the Machado when I got it set up by him. I realized that they had a lot of effort put towards him. You know, we done a bunch of commercials for the Ultimate Fighter, and then when I took him out, it was kind of a sore eye for them because I beat him, and I think they didn't want me to be. I think they had two guys to pick for an alternate. They took me, and the other kid was like 10-2, or he had a much better record. So I think they were looking for me to take the loss. But I went there to beat Machado for sure.
And let me ask you, you know, at this point, 2012, you know, you're definitely an experienced fighter. Like we've mentioned a few times, you already had your own gym. You never really stuck, you know, you had experience with a lot of good people and training sessions with good people, but you never really stuck with Team Quest or with the AMC team and stuff like that. How was it to get told, hey, you're being trained by Shane Carwin and stuff like that? Did you have a good experience with the training stuff there, or did you not like it? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, Shane had a great training staff. He's a smart guy, and he had everybody at disposal that we would need if you were a professional athlete that used that kind of training. Coming from my background though, we knew it was best for ourselves. We looked for the best things for ourselves. Everything was revolved on how we thought we did best, and so I was excited to go give the opportunity to some professionals, but then I wasn't confident and comfortable with that training. So it was really a misfire for me to go there and give it all to them to help me out when I really wasn't confident in their process. Even though it was a good process, I wasn't confident in it because it wasn't mine.
Sure. Now your coaching staff, including the likes of obviously Shane Carwin, Nate Marquardt, Dwayne Ludwig, Pat Barry. Those are good people. Who impressed you the most?
Honestly, their strength and conditioning coach, Lauren Landau, who's MLB strength and conditioning coach, Broncos strength and conditioning coach. Guys, he wrestled in the past, so he wasn't completely just a strength guy. He knew the sport, and he was a good mental person around for the environment. Every fighter's dealing with injuries. He kept me on the show.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, he broke his hand the Machado fight.
Yeah.
Broke his wrist, I think.
Yeah, broke my wrist.
Going into the fight or the house.
Shoulder. There's a lot of things like that, but he really he helped me get through it.
Now, do you think at this point, looking back at it, are you paying the price for all those early fights? Because you're starting to get injured in fights a little bit. You know, the Burger fight, now this fight, in Russia with the other fight. Are you starting to maybe carry the mileage?
Sure. I mean, yes and no. I think at this age, everyone's hurting a little bit. I at least have a reason.
I got you. Okay, and like you're a tough dude, so it's not like you quit or not like you stopped or anything like that, but you do have to start to take notice a little bit and take care of yourself. Or with that, did you learn a little bit about training maybe smarter at this point with the coaches?
Absolutely. Yeah, my training got smarter because I wanted to get to the fight, and if I was training too hard, not smart enough, I would never make it. I would be hurt beforehand. So it became a conscious effort on how to just be healthy to get to the fight. If we're going to break something, that's how you do it.
Okay. Yeah. Save it for the fight kind of thing. I got you. Now, let me ask you, how did you have any interactions with the other team and the other team's coaches? Because there were some interesting names on that coaching staff. You had Roy Nelson and Nick and Nate Diaz, Jake Shields. What was that like?
Well, I had Roy Nelson as just like you walk in for the Machado fight, you just got split in the locker room. So Roy was in my locker room, and so he would cover the mic and go, F the UFC, these guys don't know shit about what's going on. Like, you guys, he was trying to make it comfortable for people, like to not make it such a big thing that you hear at the UFC and stuff. But he was also dogging the UFC nonstop because he always had problems and they don't pay us nothing. He would just shit talk the whole time. So they're kind of like, dude, we're trying to be on the UFC.
Yeah.
You don't want to be there. I get it. So it was kind of he is Roy Nelson. He don't fake it. He is that guy.
Yeah, no, I know Roy. I'll tell you funny. I got to put Matt Lindland in against Fedor in Moscow. That was one of the matches I got to make in my career. And Roy was Munson was the backup for Lindland, and Roy was Munson's backup. So Roy came a heartbeat away from fighting Fedor for me, or
Yeah.
2 heartbeats, right? But he wanted that fight. I tell you, he definitely as a competitor, he has his head in the right place. He'll compete with anybody.
Yeah.
Who impressed you from there? It looks like actually, I'm looking at it. You've got a couple of guys like Sam Alvey had a long run. Neil Magny, I think might even still be with the UFC. What are your thoughts when you watch those guys on there, and knowing that you can hang with those guys?
I love Neil. He was a great guy, man. If anybody should be on the UFC after the show, he's one I can see there and I can be okay with. Any other guys out of fucking Sam Alvey being anywhere near the UFC made me sick. That's terrible.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
You want to see a low-level white belt grapple? Fuck, I think you'll just take that guy down and spank it every time he fights.
Okay, all right, that's fair. That's fair. You're now. I'm actually looking at the roster, and I noticed on your team was another one of those Hallman proteges, a guy named Bristol Marundi.
Oh,
did you know Bristol?
Yeah, me and Bristol had a lot of training time growing up for sure.
Okay. So it was cool. Like you had kind of like a buddy in the, and he's a cool guy. I've booked him before. He's not the kind of guy who's going to be Josh Barnett to you at the show or anything like that. Yeah. So that's very cool. That's very cool. Now let's go back here because I know that Lisa also had one of those UFC tough runs as well, and that came for her after the Bellator run, and after taking the loss to Jessica Aguilar, she went on, fought an Invicta on the Invicta's first show, which was supposed to be kind of like the replacement for Femme Fatale. Like they were going to be the women's show, and they did have, I think they put in over 50 shows eventually. What was that first Invicta show like? What was your feeling there? Because you fought Jessica Penny, who was a known quantity, a veteran also.
Yeah, it was a good show. They put on a good event. Yeah, it was a classy show.
Now, how come you didn't go back?
I tried to go back after I got cut from the UFC. I was lined up to fight Amber Brown, and I pulled out. One of the fights I actually pulled out of, I said, you know what, I'm not gonna keep doing this to myself, fighting really injured or super sick. And I got the flu or super sick about 2.5 weeks out. And I just said, you know what, I can't do this. I couldn't even hardly move. And so I pulled out of the fight. And then they hated me for that. And that was kind of that. And then me and Shannon Knapp she told me she'd put me on the show. She never did. And then I don't even know what even happened between Julie Kedzie, and they all kind of lied. And I don't know what they were just mad I pulled out. And so they're mad. And they kind of blackballed me out.
Okay. And unfortunately, the game sometimes can be petty that way. Now, you took a loss to Jessica Penny on that show, the Invicta, the first one. And then at the Ultimate Fighter, you got to rematch her. What was your experience with her? Because like I said, she's a known quantity. She's real tough, and you were definitely not fighting in your weight class at this point.
Well, when I fought her on Invicta, I thought it was a really good fight, and it was going good for me. There's a lot of controversy on what she says happened, what I said happened when my nose got exploded. She says she hit me with a knee. She's talked filthy shit about that all over the place with all her little friends that talk shit. And no, she rolled her head under and butted my nose over. But it was not her knee. Her knee hit me like right here in the chest. and she rolled under and then came up with a knee, and I go, ooh, and I dropped backwards, and she swears up and down she kneed me in my face. She didn't. She fucking didn't. And yeah, I felt her braids crack my nose, and my nose it just popped out the side. Anyway, we locked up. I took her down, and then she kind of got top end. They stopped the fight because they thought my forehead was cut, and then they called
That's a shame. I'll tell you, you still have a cute little nose, though.
it. But yeah. So that was that, and then Kristen had heat on Ultimate Fighter, and she's a really stuck up chick. I mean, I can't, like, Little Miss Laguna Beach, spoiled brat. Daddy didn't get her a nose job when she was in high school, so it was just so snotty, so snotty. And I was nice. I'm just dumb and nice, and she had a whole side of cunt in her. I swear to God. I mean, she was not a nice girl, and they were really mean on the Ultimate Fighter. A girl had an eating disorder going on, and so they'd be outside of the door, like, making fun of her. And I just saw a nasty side of this young lady on the Ultimate Fighter. And for the Ultimate Fighter, it really sucked. I got in there and I blew my knee. I tore my meniscus right away, and they paid no variety to that. I had no confidence. I went and they were trying to have me do duck walks. Gilbert Melendez and his crew having me do duck walks on a torn meniscus, just talking shit to me. It was horrible. It was this was a year after I had my child, so I'm sitting there soft going into this, and I didn't have a whole. I was out of the scene for 2 years.
Yeah.
And you guys were all training like beasts, and so I go in there, this new mom. It was rough, and I had to do it because it was the time. But looking back, I had no confidence. I was chubby. I was, in my mind, and just not ready to be on that platform yet. And then to have the cameras and everything in your face, and then girls are girls, and they like to clan up together. And it was just, it got nasty on the show. I mean, the girls were being so mean to one of the other girls, and I was part of that for a minute, and then I was like, this is so dumb. Like, what are we doing? Like, still talking about the same bullshit about Heather Clark? Nobody cares. Like. But of course, some of the girls would be nasty, and they're just nasty. The girls, I just saw a side of women I was thoroughly disgusted with. Mean, just nasty, mean girls. I just think they're insecure kind of inside, like real deep down insecurities. And I had my family to go home to, and my kid, and I was happy. I'm happy inside. And so either way, I fought my fight, and I didn't really even want to fight the fight, and I quit. And everybody just saw that and ripped me apart, and it was a really hard time. And then I had surgery like 2 days later. And
okay,
yeah.
It's a shame you didn't, because if you had been there at the top of your game, like with the names on there, like I have the feeling that you definitely could have competed, a little bit better than that. You know what I mean? Like, but the mind games are very tough, and you were coming off, just for the record, you had taken all of 2013 off, half of 2012, so you were coming off a 2.5 year layoff. To go into that in December of 2014. Now they did bring you back for the finale, and you fought Felice Herrig. That one was one that you were fighting into the second round, so that was a longer fight. What do you remember? Again, you're out of your weight class, and you're kind of not enjoying the UFC experience as much as some of the other people.
I just kind of felt pressured. They made you do certain things, otherwise you'd get cut right away. So there's a lot of pressure in areas. Again, with Felice, I retore my knee right before Felice. I was getting injections in my knee trying to go to this fight. Again, I should have pulled out, but I didn't. Then I got the flu like a week and a half out of her fight. So I weighed in at like, I don't even know, 108 pounds. And it was tough. And, and then the fight got nasty, a bunch of hair pulling and bullshit, and it was just too much, man. The drama just makes me sick. I just wanted to fight.
Yeah,
and I'm used to old school way of it. And this new school is talking shit and running your mouth and being a bitch. And I'll be a bitch, but not like that. That's not how I roll. And it was just, it mentally messed with me, and I can admit that.
Having gone from Japan, getting presents, and bowing to your opponent, and then fighting each other like you should, to this day and age, is not the way that we wanted to have this sport. spiked up
Well,
things.
let me ask you if my assessment, especially from what you're telling me, I mean, one way or another, if you had to, be rude or nasty with an opponent before, but it was still kind of natural. Does it seem like it's kind of fake with the cameras on it on the TV show? Did you get that feeling?
Some of it, but man, I swear to goodness, some of those girls on that show were evil. Deep down evil, evil mean girls. Beck Rawlings, oh, she is a nasty young lady. Oh my my. And then Andrew Lagana, just two of the most negative, nasty women, toxic as all hell that I've ever met in my life. I've met a lot of women. They were ugly individuals, such hate inside their hearts. Like it was a lot to be around. I don't, like I said, I can be a bitch, but I don't roll like that. Like I don't roll with hate in my heart. I'd rather work together. And and my idea was at one point, like, hey guys, like, let's stop talking about her. And then I was the new target. They were stealing my food and messing with me after surgery and putting my food in the freezer. Like it was just, they're nasty. But it also pushed us girls that were not like that together, and it pushed the girls that were like that together. So,
Okay.
I got to
Yeah.
meet some of the girls on the other team and be part of that. But it was wicked uncomfortable on that team. It
Okay.
was really.
Yeah. Now let me add, this is a question for both of you. You guys, you do the taping, you're in Vegas, you're doing the TV show kind of thing. You got cameras in your face, 24/7. Um, then you get to go home and kind of watch the show. Did you guys watch yourselves on TV? And what was your experience with the editing like? Was it something that you saw them kind of take advantage of the editing? Like I'll tell you a Shayna Baszler story also, because she did the show. She said they would put her in a room and say, okay, talk about, how you would win this fight if it perfectly went your way. And then she would say, well, I would go in there and I would do this. And then, they edit it completely different right before her fight. Like that's her pre-fight interview. And it was just a kind of theoretical question when they asked her of it that wasn't presented that way. Did you guys see any funky editing or stuff like that where they were kind of taking advantage and telling a little bit of a different story than what actually happened?
Oh yeah, for sure. They'll ask you what happened tonight. Like if there was an incident at the gym, you explain what happened. Well, tonight at the gym, so and so did this, so and so did that. They say, okay, repeat all that and don't say last night or tonight. They didn't want a timestamp on it, so they could use it anytime they wanted, fit it in. And you could tell they were going to do that, and they say, you go, okay, so you say it the way they want you to, and then you kind of thinking like, where are they going to put that?
Okay, what was it actually something you caught onto it, Eddie? You realized that that's what they were doing?
I've seen the show long enough to where I know how I can see when I'm watching it, and then watching them tape things and making sure that they get the right shot on certain things. You think, what's that going to be used for? And then you watch it later. There's a commercial with blood in this thing. It looks like a huge eruption. And someone had a nosebleed. But they were like, zooming in and making sure it looks like there's blood in the house. It's like, what are they going to do here? And sure enough, they got guys screaming, show blood in the sink. We must have had a fight now.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Go
our
ahead.
show, they put us down. Like they dampened down the nastiness. It was so much more wicked and meanness going on than what they even showed. I couldn't even believe they didn't. I thought they were going to show more of it, but that would have made us all look real bad, really bad.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it was bad enough that they couldn't even present it in terms of
Yeah.
when they're trying to market people. Now, Lisa, you got an opportunity that didn't come by Eddie's way. You actually got beyond the TV show into one of the UFC fight nights, a big show with heavyweight title fight. It looks like, or maybe just a heavyweight fight between Steve Miocic and Mark Hunt. That's a relatively huge fight in the main event. What was that? And you fought the notorious Beck Rawlings on that show. So talk about that experience. This was your last UFC fight.
Yeah, I mean, they called me up. I was just kind of getting back out because I was dealing with the loss and then the knee injury that I was kind of still nursing because I didn't want to go get surgery again. And they called me and I said, I haven't really started training yet. And he said, well, take the fight or we're going to cut you. So I said, nope, I'm going to take that fight. So I took the fight. We went to Australia and it was neat. It was a neat experience. We had a great time. I mean, we always make the best of situations, win or lose. And I just went out and man, I threw her on her back right away, mounted her. And then again, I just push came to shove and my confidence wasn't fully there. I didn't have a good training camp, a long one, enough one. And I need long training camps. I need that depth. I need that for my security. And I I didn't quite get all that. And again, I quit on myself. But I cut her open, so she always has a scar to remember me by.
Hey, you got a trip to Australia? That's not bad. Eddie, were you with her on that one?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so cool. You guys saw kangaroos and koalas and stuff?
Yeah,
We did.
we did.
We went to that place, the park, the wildlife refugee.
That's awesome. That's awesome. A lot of people, you know, Australia is so far away. Talk about the plane ride. I had a friend that said that he got drunk twice on the plane ride.
Sixteen
It-
hours.
Man, it's weird to me to play that long.
Now, so you guys come back now. You're both starting to approach, let's say, the end here, and it looks like maybe you kind of decided this will be the last time we go out, and you fought on the same show. Which, unless I missed it here, is this the first time you guys have fought on the same show together? Unless you go back to like the early, you know, underground days where you fought at F2N Fight Tonight.
That might have been, we grappled together on tournaments, but never fight, I don't think.
Okay, so this was, and she didn't remember, so it maybe didn't impact you, or you guys weren't doing it on purpose, like as a retirement for both of you, because this turned out to be her last fight, and it looks like it was your last fight, Eddie, until you went for one last shot at the PFL that we'll get into. So, what was this experience like? This was also a big show. Thiago Silva fought on against Sokuju. A lot of good names.
He's a nice guy. Yeah, it was fun. We went down and
Yeah,
I had a fight first, and then I was ready to go. I felt good. I felt confident going into it. Maybe underestimated her a little bit, but yeah, tough. I was looking to go stand up and just fight, and then we ended up getting an opportunity to. I kept asking, "Hey, I have a 70-pounder, or maybe even we can go 55. Like, if you have anybody." And they ended up coming up with somebody. So then we got another friend who had a passport to come with us, and yeah, then we just fought. It was neat.
Okay, now the girl you fought, Virna Jandiroba, she turned out to did you realize, do you follow the sport enough to know that she's maybe even still on the UFC roster? She has a fight in 2024. I think she just fought last week.
Oh, did she? No, that I didn't know, but I know she's active and I know she's doing good. I've kept my eye on her. She's definitely tough. I knew she'd go far.
She's 20-3.
Yeah, she's good.
So is that something that, you know, obviously you're not rooting for Beck Rawlings, but are you rooting for this girl? Like, you know, because you competed against her? Is it something that you kind of had some camaraderie that way?
Yeah, I liked her. I've honestly liked most of my competitors.
Okay.
And I've stayed in touch with several. So over the last, 15, 16 years. So it's.
Okay. That's cool. Definitely cool. Cool. So Eddie, now you fought on this show. You fought there, and then you took a little bit of time off, but it looks like you came back to fight in the PFL. You went into the PFL, that's a professional fighters league. This is early on in their run. They may be smaller than they are now. Were you in one of the $1 million tournaments? Is that what lured you back in there? What was your idea going back in there?
It was just because it came to Seattle. I haven't fought locally for years. There never is a big show, hardly ever. And they offered me a fight, and I said, "Man, I haven't fought in my own town never. I might never do it again." That was mainly the whole motivation was to fight here. He was in Seattle, so I took it.
Okay. Okay, cool. And you fought another veteran, Luis Firmino, known as Buscape, Brazilian guy there, a tough guy. It was a big. How was the show? How would you rate it? Was it a big show, or how did it compare to, like, say, the UFC in Australia and that sort of stuff?
Well, I mean, what can rate it to compare to like Strikeforce back when Bulldog days? I mean, it was like one of those shows. It was a good looking show coming to town, but like you said, they were pretty early in their career, so they wanted to make a good look, but it hadn't built up quite yet.
Okay, so yeah, the UFC is a machine, and I'm trying to show that, and that some of these other shows, even if they now, the rhetoric is, oh, the PFL wants to be like the UFC, I think they're still going to be way off, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be some time. They had the fight handlers, and you got to stand in line and do your autographing the million poster thing. So similar stuff, but it was just on a smaller scale.
Okay, cool. And so that was your retirement, Eddie. If I may ask, did you like leave your shoes in the ring kind of thing? Were you aware this was your last fight, or was it?
It was like an immediate thing. He broke my jaw for the second time, and without being completely obliterated, I can't stop. So I felt like it was necessary, and it was like it was just how it had to be done.
So
That
you
was
broke,
the start of school.
Yeah,
Schooling. He went.
you broke your jaw?
yeah, that was the second time. He broke his jaw, then right in half again as a 2-2 stop from the first time. So yeah, my career, I'd taken shots to deliver
Sure.
shots, which
Did
was
you
fine.
did you have your jaw that's the wired shut? Drinking fruit juice for a month?
8 weeks, sucking through a straw.
It was awful.
Yeah, it's funny. I know you're friends with Aaron because you guys trained together a lot while you guys were up there. Aaron broke his jaw twice too. It didn't sink in the first time, huh?
Well, the first time he didn't get wired shut.
So I got broken in England. They took me right to the hospital. They fixed me up and sent me home, and I had 2 plates.
But he didn't break his hinge.
I had 2 plates in there, and I was on my plane ride home eating chicken, mashed potatoes. 2
Okay.
days after surgery. The second one, they wired me shut. That really sealed the deal.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you, and I'm glad that at that point you guys decide to concentrate on your gym because it looks like obviously you guys have a great facility. We had your students leaving the gym throughout the interview. So, it looks like you guys have like a nice kind of gym atmosphere there and going on and a good business. How would you rate it? You guys are you happy? Are you guys doing well? And go ahead and plug your gym. Where are you? And give us an address and stuff like that for people to get a hold of you.
United Training Center out of Olympia, Washington.
Okay, cool.
Our website, utcmma.com. We're just in Lacey. You can Google us. 2607 Martin Way East, Olympia, 98513. Yeah, it's just a fun, quaint little facility.
We're really proud of it, honestly. Like, MMA hasn't served a lot of us career veterans very well, but this is what MMA has brought us. It's a complete.
And obviously you guys, would be qualified and great trainers for MMA and stuff. Do you have a fighting team or is it more of a gym for family and stuff? Because you also, your baby's there. You guys are a family and stuff. Is it more of a family gym or are you looking to be a fighter? A fighter gym?
It's definitely more of a family gym now, but our passion can't die hard. Like we like fighting. We have people that want to compete because we have that same drive that the training comes out in our school.
Okay.
So,
we have a smaller fight team these days, more family. There's more longevity in families.
It's a business. You gotta make money, or else you find yourselves talking about the gym you once had. You know what I mean? So that's what's so cool that you guys were able to put that together, especially because just look at your career. Like I said at the very beginning, you guys definitely put in the work, put in the miles. You deserve it. You also didn't have that one like, okay, we got that payday of $600,000. We can open a gym and a facility and stuff. So you probably put your heart into this whole thing, huh?
Well, yeah, we had a building we were trying to buy and just kind of lost it during COVID. Everything, the way it all went. Yeah, there's just some tangled mess there, but it brought us to a spot where we got to buy a piece of property that we're sitting on now, and we're just trying to build, so it's really
well. Yeah, like I said, two of the nicest people in the sport, two of the people definitely promoters that you fall for owe you a debt of gratitude because you guys probably put on shows far beyond your paychecks kind of thing, and I appreciated that. I appreciated your careers. It's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. For the fans out there of the MMA Museum, the interview was maybe a little sloppy on my part because I was trying to interview both of them and they both have such great careers, but I think it was well worth it to have them together so you could see the unity because, there are a couple of MMA couples like that went through the fight games together. Jay and Amanda. You've got up north Lance and oh
Gibson.
yeah,
Oh,
Lance
yeah.
and oh gosh, her name's gonna escape me right now.
I forget her name too, but she fought on big shows.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's
when
in
they had
Bellator.
Isn't it, what's her face?
She's in Bellator. So it's my bad. I'll get the name correct here before we end here. Give me a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, but there are not many of those, and well, when you get that, I think it's very special that you know, that the sport shows itself as being uniting and something that gets people together, and you guys are a special couple as well as special fighters. So I want to thank you very much for your time here.
Thank you. I'm so
Thank you.
sorry. The kids are getting ants in their pants.
No, that's so awesome, and I'm glad, you know, I can leave you to your family. You guys obviously have a great thing, and I'm very glad for the babies drive by. Usually we get like pets and stuff like that, but this is definitely special to see the little guy there. So, or
We're
little
on the
gal.
farm. Maybe we could have shared the pigs. I don't know.
Cool. That's cool too. Hey, next time maybe we could talk. You can hook up. You guys get internet at the farm?
Yeah.
We're
Okay,
trying to
so
make
maybe we could hook up and get a tour of the old farm. Lance Gibson's got a farm up there too, where he's got an orchard and all kinds of stuff where they eat just food that they grow and stuff. So
Yeah.
That's
sure.
awesome. Those are some goals for us. We're starting small. We just got this plot of land that was naked, so we're building little bit by little bit. And so
that's
yeah.
cool, man. That's an inspiring story. So you make me feel good for having talked to you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it,
Thank
man.
you for your time,
Thank
Miguel.
you so much.